Director of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Thursday, February 15th, and we're coming to you right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Centers. We're live at the Rock Health and Wellness Centers in Lubbock, Texas, and we're live on the radio at 98.7 Walk by Faith and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. And if you guys never been out there, Hebrews Coffee Shop, this is no one asked me to talk about this, but Hebrews Coffee Shop is a really cool place in Lubbock. If you guys ever want to get out there and go have a cup of coffee, sit out on the patio, look at the lake, it's really a cool little place, and they do a really good job of trying to make it a place that you can go out there and read or study or have a good conversation with. So that's where the radio station is inside the Hebrews Coffee Shop. So we're lucky to be on the radio station. We're lucky to have the relationship that we have with Victor and Letitia Flores and Ken Adams and Bob Gray that take care of us every single day on the radio. So shout out to all those guys. Really appreciate them and all the work they do to help us have the opportunity to bring all this information to you. Man, I hope you guys have had a good week. We've had a good week at the Rock. It's been, I say that every time on the show, but it's real. There's been some great stuff going on. Some really good people getting some really good care, and I'm really excited about what we're doing and some of the things. And Kim Van that we've had on the show, she runs our nutrition department, and Kim really helps me with some internal education stuff that we run on our TVs. And I've had several patients. They come in and that I've been taking care of for a long time that have come in and said, "Man, you do a lot of stuff here that we didn't even know about. Like, I didn't even know you did all this stuff, the heart rate variability and the heart sound recorder and the in-body scan and the Ultra G treadmill and the fitness classes and all the stuff that we do." So it's like, yep, we're trying to help you live a better life. We're trying to help create a place where you can come get well. And for those people who are doing it, it's a lot of fun. For me, it's absolutely a lot of fun. And so I hope you guys are doing well out there. I hope you've had a good week and like we've had. So tonight we've got several things on the show. I've got some science stuff. I tried to say a few weeks ago that we try to make Thursday nights a little bit more technical for those people who are interested in it. And I don't know if I'm getting technical enough or not, but we've got some cool stuff on the show. We had talked a little bit, I think on Tuesday, we talked about the Michael Hall video, and we were talking about POTS. If you guys deal with POTS, you can go back and look at that, and you could find out about postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where your heart rate jumps like 30 beats per minute whenever you go from sitting to standing. That's one of those. There's some nervous system function stuff and some thyroid, adrenal things going on right there that's causing that. And so we talked about that, and we talked about that dopamine and the pursuit. And I've had several great conversations in the office about that video. That just remembering that the pursuit is how we keep that eternal supply of dopamine going. That as long as we're working on it, trying to get better each time, the pursuit is what keeps our dopamine going. And so it's so awesome when we study something like that and we talk about it on the show, and then I'll have multiple patients come in and give me examples about that. Remember, I talked about on Tuesday that I went and got adjusted, and the girl that runs my chiropractor's office was talking about being about her extensions in her hair and how she's just getting tired of it. Remember, I was talking about the pursuit. Well, it was just like you see the video, and then all of a sudden you can start to see in the environment where people are dealing with those problems that are those same issues. And one of my ladies today, she's 73 years old. Awesome lady, awesome husband. They're relatively new to the office, but they just seem like golden people to me. And she ran a 2-mile fun run this weekend. She's 73 years old, and she was frustrated because she she missed her time by 39 seconds. And you have to run 2 miles in 30 minutes. So you have to at least average a 15-minute pace to be able to get to the podium or whatever. And she had the second fastest time in her age group, but she was 39 seconds over, and she was disappointed about it. And she was talking about how we can solve that. Like, what happens. She was, and I was explaining to her how what Andrew Huberman had talked about on Tuesday, and I was explaining to her, listen, it's about the process, right? It's about the pursuit is where we want to keep going with it. We don't want to get so caught up in. We want to be careful with our definition about the defeat. We want to, because it resets the baseline of dopamine, and it causes problems for us. And man, I really wish I might just get into that tonight again some more, because I don't think we understand. I don't think we really understand as a group of human beings. I don't think we understand how important the knowledge of that dopamine system is, and exactly what it's doing to us on a daily basis. And what it does to us with nutrition, and what it does to us with our motivation, and what it does to us with our overall health. So I might just come back here in a second. I'll just make a little note for myself, and then I might just come back in a second and re-talk about that again, because I just think it's a big deal. I do. I think it's a big deal. So we'll come back in just a minute. We'll revisit that. But that's what we were talking about. But at the end of the show on Tuesday, I just had a little bit of time to touch on the recode stuff. And so I was thinking that maybe we could get into the recode stuff a little bit more tonight, because you might be really interested in some of the things that that Dr. Bredesen, some of the details about vitamin D and selenium and all the things that are super important for Alzheimer's or dementia or and that type of deal. So that's what I kind of want to touch on that. And there's a couple of little things. There's some articles I kind of want to touch on, or some. There's one little thing I want to talk about. But last night on the show, we were talking about mitochondria, right? And we were talking about one of the things that happens about in the book, and it all just tied in together, right? One of the things that happened in the book, in the book that we broke down last night by Lee Know, Lee Lee Know, Know. He's a naturopathic doctor, ND, and it was Mitochondria: The Future of Medicine, or something like that, I think was the name of the title of the book. And one of the things that he talked about was when we become ischemic, or when we have a decreased amount of blood flow to our brain, that changes the way that we process oxygen. It increases free radical production, which, if we're not careful, can cause mitochondrial damage. And it's actually worse for us than an actual stroke in the core of the stroke that cuts the blood supply off. Cutting the blood supply off causes problems, and it does cause damage. And the damage is reversible to the point that by which the mitochondria have an opportunity to restart. If the mitochondria can restart, then the cell can survive, right? But decreasing just a little bit of the blood supply to the head is something that can cause us to have ischemic problems. Lack of blood supply, which means lack of glucose, lack of oxygen, lack of nutrients that we need to the cell. Those things happen. And when that happens, that causes an abundance of free radicals, because we're not handling oxygen properly at the mitochondrial level, which can end up causing mitochondrial damage, right? We talked about that. And one of the things I said last night on the show was that we give a notebook out. So every new patient that comes in, we go through, we do all the things that we do. We do the exam, we do the right eye test, we do the pupillary light reflex, we do the x-rays, we do all of the neurological exams that we do. We get all that stuff put together. and then I do the history on them. And then we give them a notebook. And I may have mentioned the notebook in the past on the show, but it's just got it's got all of their findings in it. This is just a blank notebook, but it's got at the very back, and I've gone over this before, but I just thought it would be great to repeat it, because what did we talk about with? We talked about POTS on Tuesday, and we talked about what happens, right? We have this vestibular sympathetic reflex that gets involved. We get this decreased amount of blood flow from the lower extremities back to the heart. So when we get this decreased amount of blood flow back to the heart, then we decrease the stroke volume of the heart. And when we decrease the stroke volume, we decrease the output, obviously, right? That's what that means. And so now we get a decreased amount of blood flow to the brain, which causes us to have a decrease of oxygen to the brain and glucose to the brain, which sets off an alarm, which increases our heart rate. And then our heart rate will jump 30 beats per minute, right? But the thing that I want to talk about in that whole POTS deal is the decreased blood flow to the brain. So we had a time there that we had brain involved because of the decreased stroke volume in the heart. We have brain involved with decreased blood flow. Then we had the mitochondria book, that talked about what happens when we have decreased blood flow to the brain. It causes problems in the mitochondria, right? And then we talked about adrenaline and dopamine, and we talked about we had the sugar and cocaine article from Nature that talked about how sugar changes the nucleus accumbens inside the brain, which changes the way that we handle dopamine, which changes the way that our brain operates, right? So there's three kind of things that we've talked about just this week that tie in things that we deal with on a daily basis that have to do with blood flow. Well, in our notebook, one of the things that we hand out is this article that says decreased vertebral artery hemodynamics, which like your blood dynamics, in patients with loss of cervical curve. And conclusions of the study. The present study revealed a significant association between loss of cervical lordosis, means the curve in your neck, and decreased vertebral artery hemodynamics, including diameter, flow volume, and peak systolic velocity. Further studies are required to confirm these findings and investigate their possible clinical implications. Well, I can tell you there are clinical implications, right? Because one of the things right there, it says the study revealed a significant association between the loss of the cervical curve and decreased vertebral artery hemodynamics, including diameter and flow volume. You get a change in the blood flow volume to the brain when you lose your cervical curve. So when you lose your cervical curve, you are decreasing your blood flow volume. And when you change, because that vertebral artery is going right through the middle. That vertebral artery is going right through the middle of those cervical vertebrae, and that's supplying blood supply to your head. And when you lose your cervical curve, you change the dynamics of that blood flow, and you can decrease blood flow to the head, which means you decrease oxygen, which means what? You increase free radicals. So you increase the damaging molecules to the mitochondria when you lose the cervical curve, when you have an actual reversed cervical curve. And I took an x-ray today of a 20-something-year-old, and she had no idea. I took an x-ray today of a 42-year-old, and she had no idea. And there's like a major loss in the cervical curve in the 42-year-old. And so the downstream effects of that, it all ties back together. And it's not common knowledge. It's not common knowledge, except for you guys. You guys are like in the 1% of the people on the planet that actually understand that. If you've been listening to this show enough, you've got enough. You're the 1%ers now. You're the 1%ers in the history of all mankind to know about some of the things that nobody else knows about. And how awesome is that? Yeah, I think it's awesome. And you just found out that if you lose your cervical curve, you change your blood flow to your brain. Well, you found out on Tuesday that decreased blood flow to the brain increases free radicals, and increased free radicals can cause all kinds of damage like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, in neurodegenerative diseases. It can cause cardiac problems. It can cause problems after a stroke. Like if you happen to have a stroke and you've already had that decreased blood flow, or you've already had that compromised ATP production in the brain, then you've got a problem at a whole nother level right there, right? And that's where it all comes back to me. It's like, oh, okay, we really should try to figure out how do we protect those mitochondria. And I just think that's really cool. You know, another article that we put, I might as well mention it while here, and I think I've mentioned it before, but the article that we put in our notebooks right in front of that, the vertebral artery notebook, is a neurobiology of aging article. It says, get a grip. Individuals' variation in grip strength are a marker of brain health, right? How many people know that their grip strength has to do with their brain health more than it has to do with their hand strength? Right? When we test your grip strength and your grip strength is low, what that means to me is that your brain strength is low. And wouldn't it be interesting if your brain strength was low because you weren't making enough ATP in your brain in order to run the cells in your brain properly? And then what would be causing that? Right? Maybe you lost your cervical curve. Maybe you lost your cervical curve and no one ever told you that those things are related, and then now you end up with Alzheimer's disease, right? So, man, some good stuff right there. So, one of the things that we do, and I'm not going to get into it because you think, man, all this dude talks about sometimes is fish oil, but I'm not going to get deep into fish oil. But I do want to address it because it came up today, and one of my patients asked me. I said, "Do you take fish oil?" And because we were trying to figure out how to get better lung capacity. And how do you get better lung capacity? Well, the first thing everyone would want to talk about is exercise, right? You got to exercise to get better lung capacity. Of course, that'd be a vital part of how you would increase your lung capacity. But what could you also do? You could increase your mitochondrial capacity. And how would you go about doing that? Well, one of the ways that you would do that is make sure that your omega-6-3 ratio is properly. So I asked the patient, do you take fish oil? And they said yes. And I said, well, send me a picture of the bottle of your fish oil. And so what I got is I got this picture, and this is the picture that I actually got right here, and I don't know if you can see this very well, and I don't know how to make that bigger, but that's the back of and you guys on the radio, what it is the back of a bottle of fish oil, and so look what it says right there, and if you can't see it, but right here it's got DHA and EPA, and what do we want? Right, we want the DHA to be 1,000. So serving size on this bottle is 3 soft gels. 3 soft gels will get me 195 milligrams of DHA. 195 milligrams of DHA. So I'm going to divide 1,000 divided by 195, and that's going to get me 5 servings. So I've got to have 5 servings, 5.12 servings of this type of fish oil in order to get DHA to 1,000. Okay, well, there's 3 soft gels per serving, so I got to have 15 soft gels, and no, I didn't need to use my calculator for that, but I did. I got to have 15 soft gels in order to get 1,000 milligrams of DHA by using this particular brand of fish oil. Now, let's use an example. Let's show another example of what the fish oil that we use here in the office. And we've got 2 different ones that we use here in the office, but I'll just use this RX Omega. And why? You say, why are you selling this RX Omega? Well, you got some sort of, you get some sort of kickback from the RX Omega company? No. Do I make a little bit on the bottle? Yeah, about as much as it takes me to order the bottle and sit down and talk to people with it. But this RX Omega Ultra Strength 2150 Omega 3 from Natural Factors, that's what we use in the office. And the back of it, when you look at what it has, the back of it will show you right here. There's EPA and DHA, and this is this bottle that's right here, right that I'm looking at. So this bottle right here, the DHA content is 670 milligrams for 2 soft gels, right? So I would take 670 milligrams and say how many would that be? 670 divided by 2, that's 335 milligrams is how many I get in one soft gel. So how many does it take to get 1,000? 1,000 divided by 335, that's 2.98, so 3 pills. If I get three pills, so I can take, in order to get the same amount of DHA, then in the one that she sent me, this one, I've got to take 15 of these pills, or I can take 3 of these pills. Now you can just decide whatever works out better for you. If you'd like to have 15 of them, that's great. I don't have any problem with you taking 15 fish oil pills every single day. That's your, I mean, if you're so inspired to take 15 fish oil pills, you can. But see, it's not the same. It's not the same information that you're getting. It's not people just go find some fish oil and they don't have any idea what it is that they're getting. And what they'll end up telling me is that I tried fish oil and it doesn't work. And it's like, okay, now here's an argument. What difference does it make if my 6:3 ratio is right, which fish oil I take? And I 100% am on board with that right there. So what do we have? We have the Omega-3 Index Plus. This is a finger prick test that we can actually measure your 6:3 ratio with. So we'll take the guesswork out of it. We'll just get the test. We prick your finger. We send it off. It's $60 for the test. You can send it. We can send it off in I don't know, week, 10 days, something. Sometimes 2 weeks. They're a little bit slow. Then we'll get a report back, and we'll know exactly what your EPA to DHA and DHA ratios are. Your EPA to arachidonic acid, your omega-6,3 ratios, all that stuff comes in the report. And now, if you're taking just 3 soft gels of the fish oil that my patient sent me, if you're taking that, then fabulous. Stay with what you're taking. Don't have any problem with it. I'm not tied into the brand. I don't care. It doesn't make me any difference what the brand is, but it's one of those things that, look, if you're not, then that's when we go to work and try to get that up. And that is information that I've learned, and I've known that stuff since 2009. Dr. Murphy's the one that taught me that. There's tons and tons of research on the idea. Now everybody else is kind of coming around to the idea of how much do I take. But I just think that's something that might be important to people who are watching the show. You might actually appreciate the idea that there are certain things out there that, man, I wish I knew that. And that's something that I think is a big deal. People ask me all the time, Doc, what about my vitamin D? How much vitamin D should I take? And my question is, what's your vitamin D level? How do I know exactly what you should take? I can kind of guess because most people are low in vitamin D. So I can kind of guess where you are with your vitamin D, and we have a test. So we can just take the vitamin D test. Same thing, finger prick test. We send it off to the lab. The lab sends us back the answers and tells us what your vitamin D levels are. I had a patient today, got her vitamin D checked, sent me her blood work, and I think it was 39, 36 or 39. It's on the lower end of what normal is, but it's not optimal. And so she's asking me, how would I dose vitamin D on that? And it was 5,000 IUs is where I'd get her going. Try to get that vitamin D level up. There's lots of research that talks about the protective mechanisms of vitamin D, especially this time of year when it's cold in the winter, right? We talk about that a bunch. I just wanted to point out that we have tests for this. We have tests. We can test this stuff, take the guesswork out of it, and then we'll know how we're supposed to dose our fish oil. Or we can use ortho omega capsules, and what we get out of this one is 390 milligrams for one soft gel versus 335 for this one. But it's a little bit more expensive. This ortho omega is, but you're getting 390. The other thing I like about the natural factors is it's in a 2-to-1 ratio with the EPA. So the EPA in the ortho omega is 430 and the DHA is 390. So you took 3 of them, you wouldn't get as much EPA, and the EPA is the anti-inflammatory part. But in this one, the EPA is 1360 is for two soft gels. So whatever that is, 680 and 680 instead of 430 on your EPA. So you take 3 pills, you get the same amount of DHA basically, but you get way more EPA when you take this one here. Hey, we're going to come up on a break. We'll be right back with Life with Jason Clemmons right after these messages. Hope you guys stick with us. I think if we keep going, I think the more that we stack this stuff, and that's what we keep saying, right, is important. If you guys got questions about that, if you're watching the show and you have a question, you want to send me a message, you can send me a live message right here on the chat, or you can send me a text at 806-794-0400, and I'll answer your text for you as soon as the show is over. I may be able to answer them during the show if it's something that we're talking about. But if you have some fish oil, or if you just want to send me a picture of it, you don't even have to tell me your name. Just take a picture of the back of your fish oil bottle and send it to 806-794-0400, and I'll just respond to you and talk to you about your EPA and DHA, and we'll try to answer any of those questions that you have. But I think if you understand that and you're like I've got a girl that's having a really hard time with fish oil. I've gotten her 2 different kinds of fish oil and it's not working. It makes her stomach all upset. And she's like, nope, I'm not doing fish oil anymore. I've tried it twice. It doesn't work. It makes my stomach hurt. I'm not trying it. I was like, and I said, no. That's not what we do. That's not the way we want to do that right there. And she's like, I don't get what the big deal is. And I'm like, well, trust me on this one. Like, I've got lots and lots of backing on this deal that it's really, really, really important. And I said, look, I can't take care of you. I can't love you and take care of you and accept you not taking your fish oil. Like, those 2 things are completely incongruent with each other. And she just laughed. And I was like, look, if I didn't care about you, then I would be fine with you not taking your fish oil. Like, if you didn't mean anything to me, that'd be totally fine with me. I'd just take your money. You can just come get adjusted. I'll just take your money. I'll adjust you for the next 20 years until you get Alzheimer's disease. And then I'll apologize to your son for the situation you got yourself in. And it's like, we're just going down the road. But I can't do that. I care about this girl. So I can't let that happen. And I care about her son because he gets adjusted too. So there's no way I could possibly not work harder to figure that out. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Jason Clemmons. You're listening to Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. It's Thursday, February 15th. We just got finished talking about fish oil, omega-3s, mitochondria, cool stuff, awesome stuff, really. The life stuff. God made it all. Don't get confused about that, right? It's good stuff. So let's talk about Recode for a second. because I do want to talk about this. And I wanted to take some time tonight. Let me do one other thing, because I got this cool little diagram right here that I want you to see, just to kind of, it's just a 2 minutes right quick. I think we could do it and show you this diagram. And you guys listening on the radio, I'll walk you through it. So this is embryology. This is sympathetic embryology right here. So these are the beginning cells in your body called neural crest cells. And those neural crest cells divide into medial crest cells and lateral crest cells. And then those cells divide into myotomes and sensory ganglia and sympathetic ganglia. And the sensory ganglia are in the dorsal root ganglia. That's something I didn't put right there. Let me just put that in there. The dorsal root ganglia, and the dorsal root just has to do with where it exits the spinal cord right there, right? But so the little part of this on the bottom of this says this relationship maintains through development. Therefore, whenever there is stimulation of the dorsal root ganglia, there is stimulation of the sympathetic ganglion at the level, and vice versa. So, sympathetic ganglion, side note, some studies have shown if during embryonic development, the mother is stressed, her sympathetic nervous system releases stress hormones and neurotransmitters. This also stimulates the developing embryo's lateral crest cells, which causes the baby to develop a very low threshold to pain and very plastic sympathetic nervous system, which is not good. A very low threshold to pain, like that didn't really hurt. If I slapped my hand, that didn't really hurt my hand, right? So if it takes a higher threshold, I got to slap my hand harder to make it hurt, right? Well, if I have a low threshold to pain, then just barely slapping my hand, I'm just going to be like, ow, that hurt, right? Well, that's what it means right there. If the mom is stressed out while the baby is developing, then her sympathetic nervous system releases stress hormones and neurotransmitters. This also stimulates the developing embryo's lateral crest cells, and the lateral crest cells is where they end up getting the sensory ganglia and the sympathetic ganglia. What's the sympathetic ganglia? The fight or flight response, right? That sympathetic stress. And it's going on in babies, right? That's why it's so important to get those reflexes right. That's why it's important to get that tummy time, get that head up, and the things that go on with babies. It's those reflexes in the face. I've learned a lot from my good friend Katie Lewis in Roswell about the reflexes here in the last month, because we got a little guy that's not firing too good. But after he got adjusted yesterday, his mom told him he was on his tummy. He actually pushed up with his hands, and he started reaching for a toy. And I got that feedback today. It's awesome, right? The nervous system is what runs us. And when the nervous system isn't functioning right, we're not going to function right, and it can start from birth. That's why it's so important to get kids checked early. Getting kids checked is not some waste of time. Getting kids checked with chiropractic is a big deal for their developing nervous systems and how their bodies are going to function. So that's just one thing I wanted to add tonight. I wanted to just touch on that. So let's use this time and on the second half of the show. And let's just talk about the some of the things just from a more specific thing, because people ask me. This is from Dr. Bredesen, the End of Alzheimer's book, okay, and it's the RECODE process, and we went through that a little bit on Tuesday. But key measures of inflammation. We want to check your C-reactive protein. So C-reactive proteins produced in the liver in response to inflammation. And you want to get that test, and you want your C-reactive protein is 0.9. You want the high sensitivity is 0.9. So that high sensitivity C-reactive protein, that's what 0.9 milligrams per liter. That's where you want to be. You want yours to be less than the 0.9 right there. The ratio of albumin to globulin, your AG ratio, at least 1.8. And you can write this stuff down if you want. If you want a copy of it, let me know. I'll give you a copy of it. Let me see. We got a statement. Awesome. Thank you, Julie. You betcha. You're welcome. The omega-6-3 ratio, we want it to be less than 3, but but not lower than 0.5. So that's the goal. So your omega-6-3 ratio is less than 3-1. That's what we're looking for. Interleukin-6, that's another inflammatory process right there, less than 3 pgs per milliliter. And your tumor necrosis factor, less than 6.0 right there. So those are things that are inflammatory. And I know that's kind of like very nitpicky stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about? But if you're inflamed and you are dealing with Alzheimer's or you're trying to work on your brain, those are things that you're looking for. Vitamin D binds with vitamin D receptors and enters nucleus of the cell to turn on some 900 genes. Sunlight converts the whole process, and then we get it's got to go to the liver, it's got to go to the kidney, and then we get the active form of vitamin D. The current values, between 20 and 50 is the goal. 30, multiply 30 times 100, and that's where you get 3,000 IUs if you were going right there. So 3,000 IUs, according to Dr. Bredesen, is a minimum of vitamin D. Then there's things that you would check with your hormones. You check your hormone status, and like your thyroid and basal body temperature, 97.8 to 98.2. So you would want to check that. You betcha, Lewis. I'll get you a copy of this right here. You would want to check that too in the morning. First thing in the morning, if you have a thermometer, before you get out of bed, before you do anything, just reach over and grab that thermometer and take your temperature. And do that about 5 days in a row, and you can get kind of where your body temperature is right there. And so the thyroid, you're going to measure free T3, free T4, reverse T3, and thyroid stimulating hormone. So thyroid stimulating hormone over 2.0 is concerning. Free T3 is 3.2 to 4.2 pg per milliliter. Free T4 is 1.3 to 1.8. And reverse T3 that inhibits thyroid activation is greater than 20. So those are some of the things with the thyroid that you might consider. And make sure that when you're testing your thyroid, you're testing all of those things. Don't just test your thyroid stimulating hormone, your TSH. You want to test your free T3 and your free T4 and the reverse T3 as well. This is coming from Dr. Bredesen. Estrogen and progesterone. Ovaries removed by age 40 without hormone therapy have double risk of Alzheimer's disease. That's my note that I wrote down right there. Ovaries are removed by age 40. If you had a hysterectomy, they took your ovaries before you were 40 and you didn't do hormone replacement, there's a double risk of Alzheimer's disease. Estradiol, 50 to 250. Progesterone, 1 to 20. Ratio estradiol to progesterone is 10 to 100. So that's what you're looking for right there. That's the marker that you're looking for on that one. Testosterone, the goal, 500 to 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. Free testosterone, 6.5 to 15 nanograms per deciliter. Cortisol, pregnenolone, and DHEA. Pregnenolone is the master steroid hormone, precursor for estradiol, testosterone, cortisol, DHEA. High-stress pregnenolone is siphoned off to make cortisol and DHEA. I actually had that conversation with Dr. Fraley last year, and I listened to it. I got to do a talk on Tuesday at the WISE group, and we're going to talk about diabetes. And one of the things that where you get this, where you start to steal to try to make your cortisol, you can get that issue, you get siphoned off. When you're under high stress, the pregnenolone is siphoned off to make cortisol and DHA, and it leaves little left to make estradiol and testosterone. And so it's like, remember what we talked about multiple times, is that your testosterone levels are going low because you're stressed out, and the way that everybody wants to handle it is just give you more testosterone, right? It's like, let's deal with the stress. Let's deal with the stress and learn how to handle the stress and figure out the things we can do with the stress so that we don't drive our testosterone levels super low. That's just something that we don't want to do, right? So cortisol in the morning, 10 to 18 milligrams. Pregnenolone, 50 to 100. DHEA sulfate, 350 to 430 in women, 400 to 500 in men. So any questions that you have on that, just remember about that. There's also copper-zinc ratio. Too much copper plus too little zinc equals Alzheimer's disease. So toxic Alzheimer's is very low zinc levels. So there's different reasons that you get Alzheimer's disease. One of them is a toxicity, and toxic AD, very low zinc levels. Zinc supplements enhance cognition. Zinc has balanced electrons. Copper does not. So copper is a free radical. And so there's the zinc ratio that you're looking for, and it's less than 1.4. Desired is 1.1. So if you're interested in that, that's something that you could pay attention to, your copper-zinc ratio. Most copper is bound by ceruloplasmin. To determine free copper, subtract copper levels minus 3 times ceruloplasmin. So I don't know if you have that. CERULO, ceruloplasm. I don't even know what that is, but that's how you would get it. Zinc in red blood cells, 12 to 14 milligrams per liter. The goal copper-zinc ratio, 0.8 to 1.2. Zinc equals 90 to 110 micrograms per deciliter. Copper equals 3 times ceruloplasmin, less than 30. So the point I'm trying to make with some of this, and some of you have asked about these different levels, but the point that I'm trying to make with some of this is that overall health and wellness matters when it comes to things like Alzheimer's disease. It's not just one thing, right? It's like the whole picture. You want to really work on it and to get it all working where you want to. Magnesium. Goal, red blood cell magnesium, 5.2 to 6.5 milligrams per deciliter. That's what your goal is on your magnesium. Selenium. It's the firefighter. Glutathione, water, plays a role in regenerating glutathione. Selenium plays a role in regenerating glutathione. Serum selenium is 110 to 150 nanograms per milliliter. Glutathione, 800 to 1230 micromolar. So selenium, I think. Let me look this up really quick, because I think, if I'm right, it's Brazil nuts. You guys may already know that. Pretty sure that's right. Yeah, Brazil nuts are a rich source of selenium. And they're talking about like 3 Brazil nuts a day. And that's something that we should add to our list of stuff at home. That's something that I never think about doing. But 3 Brazil nuts a day, I believe, is what all you need to do is to get the selenium that you need. So Brazil nuts contain more selenium than any other food. While this sounds like a benefit, the amount of selenium in a handful of Brazil nuts is so high that eating them too frequently puts you at risk for selenium toxicity. As long as you occasionally only eat a few, Brazil nuts are a good source of magnesium, vitamin E, and healthy unsaturated fats. So that's what I'm talking about. Don't eat a bunch of Brazil nuts. Just eat like 3 Brazil nuts, and that would be plenty to get your selenium. Heavy metals. So you get into the heavy metal stuff, and I don't think I'll go deep into the heavy metals on every one of them, but I want to touch on what some of the heavy metals are that contribute to Alzheimer's disease. And that's mercury is the first one on the list. The larger the fish and the longer it lives equals increased amount of mercury. Tuna, swordfish, orange roughy, and shark. The safer ones are the smaller fish, the salmon, the mackerel, anchovy, sardines, and herring. So I know there's a big problem. I know everybody gets all upset about mercury in the fish oil and all that sort of thing, right? It is. Like you gotta kind of make sure that the companies that you get your fish oil from try to solve that problem, and you get all of those fish from the ocean. But if we get to the point where we don't have any fish left on the planet, then we might as well just take a Tylenol and just give up on it. Like let's just go out swinging, right? Let's just get if because that's really like you're not going to solve any problems. You're not going to solve your problems skipping your fish oil and eating something else and fixing your brain problems and your nerve problems and your nervous system problems and your mitochondria problems. I don't believe it. I don't think that's going to happen. So all you guys out there who are stressed out about mercury in the fish in the ocean, stop it. Because it's like I was going home last night. I called mom and dad and I said, "Hey, what's going on in the world?" And they said, "Well, I don't know. There's some story came out that Russia's got nuclear satellites that's going to blow up all of our satellites." And it's like, look, if we get down to a nuclear war, like I'm not worried about like survival. All these guys having bunkers and stuff. Like what's his name? The Facebook guy, right? He's building some bunker to survive a nuclear blast or whatever. And dude, there ain't gonna be nothing on the other side of that nuclear blast. So that's gonna suck, man. I mean, I'm telling you, that's gonna suck. Well, same thing. If we don't have any fish left and they're all full of mercury and there's no way to get the mercury out of it, well, let's just have some Snickers bars and some good old Bluebell ice cream we've been putting off, and let's just go out with a bang. That's how I feel. So up until then, I'm taking my fish oil, and I'll worry about that nuclear blast and that mercury stuff down the road. Arsenic, lead, cadmium, things that are you get in groundwater. Some farm chicken. Avoid seafood for 3 days before your blood draw. Chemical factories, yellow and red paint. Those are things that kind of go right there. You want to keep all your mercury, lead, arsenic, and cadmium all below 50th percentile or blood. Mercury is less than 5 micrograms per liter. Lead is less than 2. Arsenic less than 7. Cadmium less than 2.5. Another thing is get some sleep. Sleep is a big deal when it comes to Alzheimer's disease. Cholesterol and other lipids, vascular dementia associated with many small strokes. And that's a big deal inside the brain. That's why I'm not a big fan personally of this decreased blood pressure issue whenever we get older. Like I don't think 120 over 80 is necessary when you're getting older. And to take blood pressure medication to keep pushing your blood pressure down, to me, is increasing these mini strokes, and because you're not getting enough pressure to the first thing you should think about when you have high blood pressure is that your brain is trying to get more oxygen. That's the initial start of blood pressure. So if your blood pressure goes up, your brain needs more oxygen. If you don't work on that first, your brain needs more oxygen. You can handle increases of blood pressure for small periods of time. It's not gonna hurt for small periods of time. So you got enough time to get some exercise, watch out for your caffeine, pay attention to your salt. I'm not an anti-salt guy, but I think it's like, look, sometimes sometimes we can overdo certain things and we can make our blood pressure go up. And I'm speaking from experience on this deal that sometimes you can not eat sugar for 24 months and still get your blood pressure to go up because maybe you drank too much coffee and maybe you had too much salt. So there's some of that right there from a health and wellness standpoint that we might want to consider, right? So the goals, the LDL 700 to 1,000 or SD-LDL greater than 20 micrograms per liter, or 20% of LDL or oxidized LDL less than 60 ULs. Total cholesterol greater than 50, greater than 150. The total cholesterol greater than 150 is what I have written down right there. Then we get into a whole nother stuff. There's a lot of stuff in that book. It's a really awesome book. See how much time I got left. Okay. Vitamin E, the goal for vitamin E is 12 to 20 micrograms per milliliter. Vitamin B, the goals are 20 to 30. In moles per liter. That's what you're looking for. And then it gets into leaky gut. And then he gets into blood-brain barrier permeability. And then he gets into gluten sensitivity. And then he gets into autoantibodies. So it takes some work. It takes some work to, let's see what he has to say about leaky gut. One of the most common ways to create systemic inflammation. Test lactose and mannitol in urine. Lactulose shouldn't get through the gut. Mannitol should get through the gut. Or antibodies to zonulin, and that's a Cyrex Array 2 test. So there's a way to check your leaky gut. There's some doctors here in town that do it if you're interested in that. I don't have that particular thing here in the office, but I've got some people I can get you in touch with if it's something that you're interested in. That leaky gut thing is a big deal, and it can cause all kinds of problems. One of them is arthritis in your hands. We've talked about that on the show before. The arthritis in your hands is a lot of times is starting with your gut. Eczema starts with your gut. Allergies, food allergies and everything. Remember what we talked about, stomach acid problems. Stomach acid problems can lead to a lack of breakdown of proteins, and that lack of breakdown of proteins can lead to food allergies. So I don't really buy the food allergy thing too much, but I'm not saying you don't have food allergies, but I don't think you're allergic to the food because of the food. I think you're allergic to the food because of the lack of physiology in your body, the lack of biochemistry causing you to be allergic to the food. Let me see if there's anything here on blood-brain barrier or permeability. Herpes simplex comes up. Some other things. Lyme's disease. Borrelia burgdorferi, however you say that. So there's some tests that you can do for that blood-brain barrier. So I just really wanted to take some time and go through those to talk about, because I took a lot of notes when I broke down that book, and it's really an awesome book for anybody. If you guys don't know what it is, it's Dale Brednison's The End of Alzheimer's, and those are some of the things that were in the book right there. So let me check I got a few things. Julie said, thanks. Lewis, I'll get you this. I'll get a copy of this stuff to you, and I'll get it sent to you. Thanks for sending me your email right there. I thought I got a text you out. Let me answer that text here after the show is over. And let me see where we are on time. Hang on one second. Yeah, we're just about out of time. So I know it was tedious tonight, but I hope some of that information was helpful to you, and I hope you got a grasp on it. And if there's anything we can do to help you be better, please let us know. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys will have a great evening, and I will not be I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do tomorrow night. I may be traveling tomorrow night, so I'll have to talk to Bob about that. But you guys have a great night. And we'll somebody, the show will be on tomorrow, but I don't know if it'll be live or be a rerun. I'll see what I can do. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow night, or if not tomorrow night, I'll see you on Monday. So have a great evening.